Jesse Marsch has announced a very exciting Canadian roster that is set to face Australia and Colombia this window. But there's some new faces. There is some returning faces to this Canadian roster that is surely going to add in a lot of competition as well as excitement for supporters, as well as Jesse Marsch. And we're going to break it all down, starting with the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and of course wrapping it up with the frontline and the strikers. But before we jump into it, make sure to jump into the comments and let me know your thoughts around the roster selection and if you would have changed anything. And make sure to smash that like button and hit that sub button as we continue to build this incredible community. But let's jump straight into the goalkeepers. As we see the 1A, 1B, 1-2 punch in Dayne St. Clair and Maxime Crépeau get the call up and return to the roster. But a new third choice goalkeeper in James Pantemis. And yes, it might just be a third choice goalkeeper. It just might be a goalkeeper to back up Dayne St. Clair and Maxime Crépeau. But for me, this is extremely exciting. James Pantemis is a goalkeeper for Canada who has deserved a call-up for a long time now and has desperately deserved a call-up under Jesse Marsch. And it has been said by Jesse Marsch in his press conference that it has been hard to call up both James Pantemis and Maxime Crépeau and leave them, Portland Timbers, without a number one goalkeeping choice in the MLS. So I understand that being a hard situation, but we have to remember, James Pantemis has won the role in Portland Timbers. At the MLS side, he has become the number one goalkeeping choice at the club, ahead of an arguable goalkeeper who's going to start for Canada at the World Cup in Maxime Crépeau. James Pantemis has the right to be in the conversation to be Canada's number one goalkeeper. He has had a stellar season in the MLS. Yes, there's still been mistakes throughout the year for James Pantemis, but he has had an incredible season. He has saved 50% of penalties he has faced. And as we know so much as Canada supporters, that has been a major issue for Canada under Jesse Marsch. As James Pantemis has gone 3 for 6 on saved penalties throughout the MLS season, playing 18 matches, only conceding 22 goals while having 4 clean sheets and a 7.4 football match rating across the season. That is incredible for a 28-year-old goalkeeper, and the fact he hasn't been able to get into the Canadian men's national team roster is mind-blowing. And for me, it is relieving, it is exciting, and it is a breath of fresh air to see a new number 3. It isn't a Tom McGill who might not push for a starting role right now. It isn't another goalkeeper who is just there for the experience. This is a James Pantemis who legitimately, for me, has the chance to push for the number 1 spot. Do I think he will get the number 1 role come the World Cup? No, because Maxime Crépeau, Dayne St. Clair has built up the experience, has built up the time playing under Jesse Marsch, and deserve one of them to be the number 1 choice. But I still believe James Pantemis deserves to have an opportunity here for Canada on a daily basis in training, maybe to get a start against Australia, to prove himself why he has won that role over Maxime Crépeau at Portland Timbers and why he deserves a chance for the Canadian men's national team. But let's move swiftly on to the defenders, because this is still a very exciting crop and where I would have potentially made one change to this roster. As we see Zorhan Bassong, Moise Bombito, Derek Cornelius, Luke Dufour-Jarol, Richie Laryea, Nico Sigor, and Joel Waterman. There is no Jamie Knight-Labelle, there is no Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty. And for me, the one change I would personally like to see here is Zorhan Bassong for Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty. Going for experience, going for someone with know-how, and yes, when you look at that left back spot, there is not someone who is going to start, who is going to be that number 1 option for Canada at the World Cup. It is going to be Richie Laryea starting here in this window, surely, at left back. And yes, I would like to see Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty continue to build up experience in those camps, continue to win over the role, but maybe Zorhan Bassong behind the scenes has just proved himself to Jesse Marsch, and that wouldn't surprise me. It's not a big issue, but I personally would just like to see Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty in this squad, but Zorhan Bassong has clearly won that role, as well as Jamie Knight-Labelle being left off the roster and seeing a returning Moise Bombito, and this is extremely exciting. This is a huge boost to this Canadian team, a huge boost to the players, a huge boost to the supporters. This is a very exciting addition. Seeing him fully fit, fully healthy, back playing for OGC Nice in Liga, in league play, and now getting talked to have a start for Canada against Australia or Colombia, and two huge tests against sides that will be at the World Cup, against one of the best sides in the South American region. And this is a great test. And to get Moise Bombito back, to see who gets to start next to Moise Bombito, will it be Derek Cornelius? Will it be Luc de Fougerolles? It is a huge question. And now having three center backs who can all start is a major boost. And we still have to remember, this is a back line without Alistair Johnston. This is a back line without Alphonso Davies. It just shows the depth now of this Canadian men's national team and of the depth that this back line possesses. Having Moise Bombito poses now more questions than answers. It's who starts next to Moise. Does Derek Cornelius hold that left center back role? Does Luc de Fougerolles' calm presence on the ball and having that calm head on the ball help Canada? And I'm not saying Derek Cornelius doesn't have that, but they have it in different abundances. And the pressing from Derek Cornelius is something that outweighs Luc de Fougerolles. There is huge positives in both players' games. It is just, what does Jesse Marsch prefer? Who does he go with? I still think in one match we will see Moise Bombito get the start, and another we won't. He has to slowly have that transition back into Canada. I'd be very surprised if Jesse Marsch gives Moise Bombito back-to-back starts for Canada. This is a very, as we know, a very intense, a very fast, a very quick style of play Jesse Marsch likes to play on the front foot, pressing those forward line. We saw it so much with Derek Cornelius and Luc de Fougerolles when Canada played against Wales and Romania, with how high both those center backs pressed. And I'm not saying Moise Bombito can't do that. He definitely can. But do we want to throw in a guy who is returning to form, who's getting his fitness back up, who's getting back to full health, pressing back-to-back in two high-intense games against World Cup opponents who want to prove a message to Canada? I don't think we do. I think you give Moise Bombito the start in Montreal, unless you want to go with the bigger opponent against Colombia. You give him one start, see who you want to partner him next to, and then you give Luc de Fougerolles and Derek Cornelius the next match. That is how I'd like to pair it. And Jesse Marsch has also said in his press conference that Alistair Johnston is progressing very well and looks like he'll be back for November, while Alphonso Davies coming back for November looks to be a bit more of a long shot, but the positivity and the conversation between Bayern Munich is there on a daily basis. But let's move to the midfielders. And this might be my favorite addition in this squad out of it all. As we see Ali Ahmed, Tajon Buchanan, Mathieu Choinière, Stefan Eustáquio, Ismail Kone, Liam Miller, Jayden Nelson, Jonathan Osorio, Nathan Saliba, and Jacob Schaffelberg. What a midfield, what a depth midfield, and what a strong squad this Canadian side is starting to have. When you look at the wing, we'll start there with Canada's wingers in Ali Ahmed, Tajon Buchanan, Liam Miller, Jayden Nelson, and Jacob Schaffelberg. At times, Jesse Marsch has gotten caught out having too many number 9s, having too much players in the back line, and not having a strong and deep enough midfield or wingers, and he is doing that. He has realized that with how intense and high Canada presses with this midfield, you have to bring in depth. You have to bring the ability to change things up on the fly during a game, and now Canada having so much depth is a huge bonus. When you look at who's going to start, it's probably going to be Tajon Buchanan on the right, and then you'd like to look at Jacob Schaffelberg or Ali Ahmed on the left. But what I am most excited for is the returning of Liam Miller, one of my favorite players in the national team who has never been given a true shake. But when we remember back to the start of the Jesse Marsch era, how good the partnership was between Liam Miller and Alphonso Davies, that friendly against Panama, the Copa America. Liam Miller does some special things being partnered with Alphonso Davies, and what you get from Liam Miller is a tireless work rate. He is just like Ali Ahmed, but I think Liam Miller gives you more in the final third. His creativity on the ball, his overlaps, his dribbling ability. I'm a huge Liam Miller supporter, and I think he brings so much to the starting lineup, especially if we have Richie Laryea or Alphonso Davies behind a Liam Miller. It could be a special partnership. The way Liam Miller will track back and help out that that fullback. What we saw so much in that last window was Richie Laryea bombing on, creating space, looking to create goals, almost having a penalty and should have had a penalty in the game against Wales. This is a special fullback pairing Canada could go with. But if you have Liam Miller ahead of them, this is a player who will give you support in the final third as well as defensively. He is a very intelligent on the football pitch and by far one of my favorite players in this Canadian men's national team roster, and I'm very happy to see him back to full fitness and back for the Canadian men's national team. But when you look at the midfield, the heart of this Canadian team, the engine room, you got Stephen Eustáquio, you got Mathieu Choinière, you got Ismaël Koné, Jonathan Osorio, and Nathan Saliba. The quality is endless. And who does Jesse Marsch go with? It is Stephen Eustáquio next to Ismaël Koné or Nathan Saliba. But now there is a question. Does Stephen Eustáquio start? I know that's a crazy question with how good Stephen Eustáquio has been for Canada. I still believe he does deserve to start. It is just a question that has to be asked now. This is Stephen Eustáquio, who is completely out of favor right now at FC Porto. He is not getting time, he's not getting minutes, he's not coming off the bench, which is a major concern and something Canadians expected might happen this season under new management. While you have Ismaël Koné flying for Sassuolo, playing great football, man-of-the-match performances, scoring goals. Nathan Saliba creating and linking up play. We had him and Koné playing terrifically for Canada in the last window. We realized that partnership can work. So does Jesse Marsch go with Nathan Saliba and Ismaël Koné? Or does he stay true to his current captain, Stephen Eustáquio? It is a huge question. I still believe it should be Stephen Eustáquio next to Nathan Saliba or Ismaël Koné. And really, between Koné and Saliba, you're splitting hairs. Two incredible footballers who have great work right now. Ismaël Koné's refound his form. Nathan Saliba looks like an incredible midfielder. It is a headache for Jesse Marsch to choose that second midfielder. Just like it is a headache for him to choose that second center back next to Moise Bombito. It is a huge question, that midfield, and something will be a major concern for Jesse Marsch to choose that competition. But one thing now with Canada is you're not choosing between two mediocre midfielders, not choosing between two free agent midfielders. You're choosing between two very, very good quality midfielders. One killing it in the Serie A. One playing very good for Anderlecht, one of the most historical sides in Belgium. You even have Mathieu Choinière now, who is a backup to Stephen Eustáquio, playing fantastic football for a LAFC side. And Jonathan Osorio, who we can't forget, has loads of experience, has loads to give to this national team still, who I think is just a piece off the bench, but can still play at a pinch for the Canadian men's national team. And let's wrap this thing up and move to the number 9s. Leave behind the midfielders, the defenders, and the goalkeepers, and bring on the goal scorers. And it is Tani Oluwase, Promise, and Jonathan David, and Cyle Larin. Jesse Marsch is sticking true to 4 number 9s like he did last window, and just replacing this time Cyle Larin with Theo Bair, which was originally the additions last window until Cyle Larin had to get left out due to a transfer and a newborn child, and congrats to him. But this is a very exciting front 9. You got Promise David scoring for fun for Union Saint-Gilloise. You have Tani Oluwase getting on the score sheet and playing very well for Villarreal. You have Jonathan David, who is really out of form right now for Juventus, but when he gets the chance has played decent football, and Cyle Larin getting opportunities off the bench for Feyenoord. This is just a very exciting Canadian squad, and I say it every window, but it really seems like it keeps getting better and better and better, and this is probably my favorite that I've seen in a long time. Moise, as well as Liam Miller, as well as James Pantemis. Where can you go wrong? Jesse Marsch has also figured out he doesn't need 5 number 9s. Why would you need 5 strikers? He's added that in elsewhere within the roster. Having 4 strikers is all you need for a 4-2-2-2, a 4-4-2 system, and Jesse Marsch has clicked into that. As we see, for me, if I was making this lineup going into these games, it would be Jonathan David paired next to Tani Oluwase. I think that is the most locked-on number 9 pair that we've seen for Jesse Marsch, and the one that we should expect come Australia in Montreal or come Colombia in New Jersey. It'll probably be rotated. I expect Jonathan David to start both games. I expect Promise and Tani Oluwase to rotate. This is a very intriguing front line. Jesse Marsch is going to want to get Jonathan David scoring goals, feeling himself, getting that confidence back up, as I'm sure his confidence is still there with Juventus. But the more goals he scores with Canada will probably help with his club side. Not saying it does a heck of a lot, but it gets his confidence up. It gets him playing like Jonathan David that we truly know. So I truly expect if anyone's going to start both games, it'll probably be Jonathan David, who should be locked on to starting against Australia in Montreal and Colombia in New Jersey. But I would rotate Tani Lawase and Promise David as my two number 9s in either of those games. But that is the roster. For me, there's not many changes that you could make. Yes, Alphonso Davies comes back in this team. Yes, Alistair Johnston comes back in that team. But this is my favorite goalkeeping trio. This is almost my favorite back line. Missing Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, and I think Jamie Knight-Lebel should also be there. But this is a very strong team. For me, our strongest we can make, our strongest possible. Well, what do you guys think? What would you have changed? Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, Jamie Knight-Lebel, Jonathan Sirois, Tom McGill, maybe even Theo Bair after scoring his first goal for Lausanne. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Make sure to smash that like button because it really helps with the content. And we are back. We are making content. And we are here. This is a very exciting squad, and I can't wait to see what Jesse Marsch does and how well this Canadian team can perform against Australia and Colombia to locked on World Cup nations for the home 2026 World Cup. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button, hit that sub button, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.